We're live. What's going on, team? Welcome, podcast number 9. Today, we actually just finished our weekly coaching huddle where pretty much we talk about you. No, we talk about really just brainstorming how we can give more to our existing clients, to the community, and just really help more people transform faster and more sustainably. That's pretty much what we talk about every week, and there's always new things that we think of. So that's what this is about. We finished up, and one of the most common things that we're seeing from clients right now are questions about, I need dinner ideas for my kids and husband, right? So how do I, like, a common thing is like, all right, I'm running out of ideas. I don't want to have two separate meals, right? I don't want to have to eat what I'm eating and then eat what they're eating. So of course, this isn't going to be a one size fits all solution. But the idea here is just to give you a couple different strategies and also some ideas with how to mix and match foods so that you can really not overcomplicate things and can take your dinners and make them as simple as possible. So let's dive into it together. So there's 3 ideas, and then we're going to talk a little bit about how we can execute these ideas. So the first one is don't overcomplicate. We're going to stick to proteins. We're going to add in carbs that the kids like that you can eat too. And then of course, this goes for your husband as well. Number 2 is we're going to include them in it. We're going to take 5 minutes. And if you're going to use a recipe, we're going to choose recipes together, right? Or you're going to choose them with them. And then number 3 is you're going to find and rotate favorites. Something that you'll hear me say a ton is you don't really need like hundreds of recipes or hundreds of meal ideas. All you really need is 7 or 13. In my head, I just need 13. And that's like the most, or even 12, because you figure I eat out at least once a week for dinner. So that's 12 every 2 weeks. And after 2 weeks, I'm ready to have it again. So all you need is like 12 good recipes for dinner. That's it. Super easy, super simple. So if we're thinking about proteins, we have 11. Now, there's a reason that we counted them, and I'll tell you in a second. The bonus is we're going to change spices for easy variety, and I'll show you how crazy by the end of this it will feel to say, I don't know what to make, or I am bored of food. We're going to solve both of those for you. So the first thing to consider is there are about 11 protein sources that are, we'll call them goal related, that are lean. Now, of course, you can do a bunch of things to these proteins, but it's going to be about 11 that are, I'll say, easy to grab, kind of convenient. 10 if you take out lamb, right? Even more if you don't eat seafood, but let's say there's 11 total. Now, of course, you might not eat all of them. Carbs, there's generally 4, right? Not including veggies. You got your white rice, your wild rice, your quinoa, your rice noodles. Really, the wild rice and white rice could be considered the same thing, right? So maybe even 3. And then you have veggies where you have quite a bit of them. I will say veggies are a fantastic way to add variety to your meals. And you might say, I don't like these. Well, something that I would invite you to do eventually, it doesn't have to be immediate, but is to just try different food and potentially try it in a way that you have not experienced it before. One of the best ways to do that, in my opinion, is by doing it via recipe. So what I recommend, I don't know if you guys can see that. Let me look really quick. Oh, no, you can't see this. Hold on. Let me pull this up on my screen. One sec. So one of the best ways that I recommend to do this is by doing it in recipes. Is that the layout I had? Oh yeah, that's too small. Okay, so this is fine. So with these recipes, you'll find a lot of foods in here, like bok choy, for example, where's the bok choy one? Like I would never eat bok choy on its own, but when I have a recipe, I'm more open to trying it, right? In the example like this. But recipes can be a great way to add some variety. But let's go back to the other one for a second so that I don't lose too much of a train of thought here. Notes. Let us continue. So in total, if we were to take 11 times 40 times 4, that's 44 different recipes, or 44 different variety of meals. We multiply that by 28, and that's going to equal about, oh, where is it? It's not here. It's going to equal, if we do the math, 11 times 44, I'm sorry, 11 times 4 is 44, times 28, it's about 1,232 combinations. Crazy. Now, that's without adding spices. If we add spices, it gets even more exciting. So if we take this away, let me share this. If you go, I added the links below as well, but if you go to the McCormick website, you can see how there is a ton. I just picked McCormick because that's the one that I use. There are a ton of different blends. Now, again, you might not like every one, but you got your like salt and pepper, you got your garlic and onion, black pepper, sea salt, got garlic turmeric, roasted garlic, a lot of garlic, okay, cayenne pepper. It's amazing how you can take chicken and rice, and even if all you were eating was chicken and rice, which obviously you wouldn't do, I wouldn't do either. But with these, you have essentially 30 different variations of chicken and rice. Now, all of these might not be good with chicken and rice. Maybe it's only 8 of them are, but that's 8 distinct different seasonings, which can totally transform your entire meal and how you experience it. So just for the heck of it, let's go back. Let's go to this one more time. And let's do that final piece of math. So if there were 11 proteins times 4 carbs, that's 44, times 28 veggies, that's 1,232 different combinations. If we were to add in all the spice variations to that as well, oh my gosh, almost 37,000 different combinations of foods. Just from 30 spices, 28 veggies, 4 carbs, and 11 proteins. Wild. Now, here's the thing. You might only have 4 of these proteins. You might only like, well, you might like all these carbs. But you might only like 8 of these veggies. Fair enough. Even if you only liked 1 out of 1,000, 0.01% of all of these combinations, you would still have 350 combinations that you could eat and use often. Like, that's pretty exciting, is it not? Like, I think of that and I go, wow, I'll never get bored of food again. So if you're thinking about how do I add variety, spices, right? If you're thinking about how can I add variety, you can switch out any of these with any of these other foods. And then if you're like, well, I don't want to have to think about how to add these, how to have like combine these and make them taste good, well, just use the recipe book that I included below, right? And you don't have to think, which is great because sometimes you don't want to. I know I don't. And you can just choose any of the recipes from here, right? Here, let me make myself smaller. You just choose any recipes from here you want. Easy peasy. And then again, all you need is about, in my opinion, 12 recipes that you like. And who knows, maybe 12 are here for you now. Or maybe you get 6 from here and you already have 6. And if you need more recipe ideas, just let me know. I have tons of these. And then you're pretty much good to go, right? Now, does this solve for other underlying emotional challenges, coping with stress? No, this is just the logic. right? This is the logic behind. So you'll hear me say a lot. There are two sides to weight loss. There's the science of weight loss, which is what everyone pretty much knows about. It's common knowledge, I think, now, which is like move more, lose weight. I'm sorry, move more, eat less than you burn. So caloric deficit, micronutrient distribution, uh, high intensity interval training, emphasis on resistance training for long-term benefit, increased metabolism. Like people know that a lot. But that's not the problem for a lot of people. The problem is the art. And the art of transformation really comes down to the individual. It comes down to the things that aren't a clear path. That's what makes it an art, right? How can you say that one work of art is good and one is bad, right? Or how can two people describe a piece of art two different ways? When it comes to your long-term transformation, you have to really dive into the art of that transformation. And by the art, I mean what's unique to you, the things that will help you specifically transform. Just a quick example is like one of the things we do with a lot of our clients is we dive in and identify their stressors. What's going on? What are the things that are keeping them up at night? What are the things that are causing them to need to cope continuously, right? And you probably saw from a video, is like an hour-long podcast I made with Charity, 3 ways we deal with stress. We can change it at the source. We change the way we view it. Getting help to do that is like cognitive behavioral therapy. And then we can change the way we cope with it, right? That is an art. That is not done. I mean, even so, it kind of is like a framework, formatted approach. But even so, like that is not the science of weight loss, right? Because the science doesn't even account for that. The science doesn't account for in week 3, you're going to feel, if you take an approach that is like deprive everything, take everything out, and this time's going to be different, and all I'm going to do is just never eat sugar again. That science, yes, should work, but it doesn't account for in week 3 when you have a really shitty day at work, right? And you're really stressed out and you're thinking, how can I feel better? And even subconsciously, you might even consciously be thinking, how can I feel better? But your body's trying to feel better. And we reach for the sugar, right? That we don't account for that in, or I'll say 97% of the industry, of trainers, of coaches, of programs don't account for that. And I think that's why they fail ultimately. Because if we're really looking to be able to transform your body and sustain it forever, we have to master the art of transformation. And that doesn't happen from saying, I'm just going to cut everything out for 12 weeks and then I'll figure it out when I lose the weight. Or I've heard people say before, which I'm not saying this to like be like they're wrong or like, why are you so silly? I'm saying this to be able to give you context to like thinking of this maybe in a different way. But I've heard people say like, oh, well, once I get to the weight, I'll be motivated enough to keep the weight, which is why like some people do like liposuction and stuff like that. But there is such a high turnover of people that get liposuction and they essentially go back to their old habits. Why? Well, the law of familiarity. Right now, if somebody is, not where they want to be physically and they get liposuction, well, for the moment, it's a new life. Everything's totally different. You feel amazing. So of course you're going to work to keep your body. But after about 3 to 4 months, maybe even 6 months, it becomes old news. The emotion that you were so excited about having is now old. It's not your body isn't novel anymore. So now what? Well, now you just go back to where you were and you gain the weight back. I see this happen so many times, even forget surgery, even just for objective-based goal setting. Now, don't get me wrong. I believe in setting goals, but I believe in setting the right goal. And don't get me wrong. I think that it's great to have a weight-associated goal as a secondary, but not as a main. I think that it's much more important to set action goals, right? Because if you set an action goal, you'll never stop, hypothetically, right? it's so important that, and like the example that I was given before, I'll just, digress on that a tiny bit. So it's like, if you have a goal to lose 35 pounds, and let's say you're going to rely on like, the motivation of like, I'm pushing through to get to this point, right? And that's what you're relying on. All right, I'm going to push through to get to this point. And that might be exciting. And you might even have people watching you, which is really cool. And it's like, okay, cool. Like, I'm going to do this. It's going to be motivating. But eventually, motivation fades. The hype dissipates. Because eventually, you're going to get to that goal. And when you get to that goal, what's going to keep you there? Because there has to be something new then to motivate you. And if that's the case, that's okay. You just always have to have something new. And if that's your personality type, so be it. It's not one that necessarily I recommend, but I'll be honest, my personality type is kind of like that. So if you identify with that, for you, it might be cool. Well, once you hit your goal, now you have performance goals. So now it's not about weight, but it's about, I need to get as strong as possible, or I want to be able to run as fast as possible, or I need to be able to do some type of performance metric in such amount of time. But you would always have to have something that you're moving towards. Otherwise, you would essentially fall off, which is not where you want to be, right? Where the alternative is, imagine if you could just make it a part of your life. Imagine that you didn't even have to think about it, and that you just were living your life, and it so happens that you're living your life with actions that support the body you want to have. That's what we optimize for. Because if I had to choose between two paths for like my mom, I would choose the more sustainable path, right? I mean, that just makes sense if you want the best for the person. And you guys probably already know that story with my mom. The reason I actually became a coach, a personal trainer, I got my first taste of personal training at 15 years old when my mom wanted a personal trainer and my dad said you couldn't have one. And I was, my dad was always working. So I was like a mama's boy. I wanted to help my mom. And I'd been working out for like 2 years at that point in the gym. And I was like, Mom, I'll train you. She wanted to lose about 30 pounds. And she said, okay. And we worked out like 3 days a week. And we did like stuff with nutrition. And we worked out for like 3 months. And she gained 5 pounds. And it was not great for her and for me, because I felt like I was letting my mom down. But I was lucky because I had been teaching martial arts at the time, and I taught kids, and the parents of the kids were all like professionals for the most part. So I started shadowing with them. I would ask them like, hey, like, can I like come to work with you, after school, and like I'll just watch what you do. And I did that with nutritionists, with personal trainers, gym owners even. And it was really cool because I got like 4 years of education in like, no joke, I would say like 4 months. Like I just learned so much. And that's what really started me on my path. Long story short was I learned a lot. And then 5 months later, my mom lost 30 pounds. And that was cool. And, I felt good about myself. And she was happy. But the reason that I committed my life to this was because I got to see, I believe, how it affected her behind the scenes. Because I have 3 siblings. And I saw how it changed her relationship with my dad. She was more like, what's the word? Playful. She was more like open to his advances, which, me being a 15-year-old, I was like, gross. But she was like more patient with me and my my siblings, right? Like, that was so cool. And I got to see my mom become what I would consider the true version of herself, the person that she felt like was lost. And when I saw that, I was like, all right, cool. This is what I want to do. And that's what set me on my path to graduating high school early, starting personal training, going to college, and then starting my first gym in 2015 after personal training at various gyms. And then fast forward 4 years ago, started working with RN specifically, and now we're here, right? And it's so cool to have that, because I I don't know if I'd be doing this if it wasn't for my mom, to be honest. If it wasn't for my mom needing to lose weight, because I don't think if I had, I don't think if I was able to see, if I wasn't able to see behind the scenes, I don't think I would feel the emotional pull like I do today towards helping people do this, because I wouldn't have seen it, right? It would have been just surface level. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I love what we do, man. There's no better feeling than to have someone truly say, like, you changed my life. Like, that's so profound. Like, it's so easy to say the words, but it's so different when you actually hear it. Like when somebody tells you, like, I say face to face, like on Zoom, right? Face to face, but it's like when somebody tells you, like, you changed my life. Like, that is one of the most impactful things. And I think that's what we're trying to do, right? Like, the way I've always looked at the work that we do, whether it's been at our gym or whether it's now online with RNs, is if we can cause a ripple effect, right? We think about women, moms. You guys have such an impact on the world around you. First off, your moms. So it's like, oh, wait, your mom's most likely, right? Or have a family. So it's like you have a couple kids, you have a husband. Well, the mom leads the family a lot of times, lead by example, right? So it's like if you are a certain way, you are now impacting 2 to 4 to 5 other lives just because we had the opportunity to impact yours. And that may mean that your kids grow up without a negative relationship to food. It might mean that they grow up being active and just consider it a part of their life. What do you mean? We grew up when we were always active. That's just what we did. That's what we do. It's not a question of like having to work out. It's just like, no, we move, right? It's pretty cool. And then that can have ripple effects for generations. But that goes beyond, because I mean, if you're an RN, obviously you're working with people, and whether you're in a director of nursing position and you're impacting your nurses, or you're working with patients directly, how many patients do you see every day, or do you see every week, or every month? If you see 5 or 10 different patients a day, and you are better because you have more confidence and energy, you're less prone to making mistakes on the job, and you just have the art of what you do is different, right? Like you already know, and I know it too. When you feel your best, when you're at your ideal body mentally, you feel your best. That comes out with every interaction, and you touch people's lives differently, right? So it's pretty cool to think that, when we impact an RN, they go on to impact not only their families but all their patients as well. It's funny, we had, when we first created this company, RN Body Transformations, we had said, it's like a mission, a side mission. A part of our mission is we want to transform healthcare. And I know that sounds like, man, that's like that's a big thing. That's a big task. But just starting one RN at a time, right? It's like, if we can transform enough RNs to where we transform their body and mind, then how could we not? Because if we can impact the RNs that are on the front lines, impacting, or that are on the front lines of healthcare will be changed. And that's just like a really cool thing to think about, that we could potentially have that power one day to have like that big of an impact. Anyway, what were we talking about? I don't remember what we were talking about. If you guys are here now, feel free to drop a comment, say, hey, I'm just checking Facebook really quick to see who said hi, because I can't see it. Oh, Allison says hi. Hi, Allison. Great to see you. Good times. This was a pleasure. Being here with you. But yeah, if you have any questions about anything we talked about, feel free to comment below. I want to make sure that you guys are getting what you need. I want to make sure that we're helping in any way we can. We got some exciting stuff coming that I'm going to announce in a few days. But yeah, that's about it. Hope you're having a super awesome day out there. I look forward to the future. So good stuff. Love you guys. Stay the course. Keep being awesome. And I will see you spoon. Bye.